Mobile MCP. That's the theme for this week. Hello, you're watching the development vlog for Shokin, a restaurant waitlist management tool soon to be made available on Android and iOS. This is Bill from Shokin, and this is week 63 of development. The current status is that the Android and iOS beta test version of the app is ready and available for testing on their respective app stores. Last week, I just submitted my application to access production on Google Play Store, which means if they approve that, which is not quite likely on your first go around, but if they did, that means the app would become available for download and searchable on Google Play Store for everybody to use within the United States. I have not yet done that for the iOS app. I'm going to do that next week. iOS side requires a bit more verbiage, copy stuff, as well as screenshots. In addition to doing the applications last week, I also set up mobile MCP for my agentic workflow. If you've been following this channel, the 49 of you, I still appreciate your patronage. I've never asked for any subscriptions. I'm just amazed that people pay attention to this development diary that I really only do it for myself, but I appreciate you being here. If you've been following, you'll know that I've been using Codex, the product from OpenAI, to assist in my programming. And I've set up a couple of MCP servers in the past, MCP being Model Context Protocol. In other words, these are the tools that you can give your agentic models to help your development. One of the common misunderstandings of AI and LLM models is that they can do no, they can't. The only thing that they can do is coming up with language, right? That's why they're called large language models. In other words, you feed it some text and it spits back out some text. It can't by itself browse the internet, interact with GitHub, or do any of those agent things. And to enable those things, developers of Anthropic and OpenAI, all those big companies who develop tools for the LLMs, have given them the ability to access the command line interface and whatnot. If you want to expand on that, one of the things that you could do is using MCP servers, Model Context Protocol. It is essentially, the way I like to think about this is essentially a skill that you can install within your LLM, such that your LLM can then use those tools to interact with your endpoints and do things on your behalf. And the MCP that I implemented last week, I don't know why I didn't do that earlier, I really should have, is something called mobile MCP. It's very straightforward to set up. It's literally, I think, one or two command line commands, and you're up and running. And what it does is that it interfaces with your ADB command line as well as your emulator. So in other words, because I develop using KMP, Kotlin Multi-Platform, within IntelliJ, the IDE, I have access to the emulators that you would run, Android apps in, right? When you're developing the app, you start the app not within your operating system, but you have to emulate it within the Android operating system and then try it out there. And mobile MCP allows you to allows the agent, your LLM agent, which in my case is Codex 5.4 now, to access the emulator and then see what you can see and interact with it in a way that you could. Now, it's not as slick as you might think it is. In other words, it can't ingest frames from it at 60 frames per second. So to be clear, it can see what's going on the screen, but it can only see that one at a time by taking a screenshot. And then the screenshot would then be fed to LLM that's vision capable. In the Codex case, it is vision capable. Codex can then read the screenshot, understand what's on the screen, and then issue the next command to interact with it. Tap here, swipe there, and stuff like that. What I cannot do is, of course, like I mentioned, it cannot just stream the entire screen to LLM. LLMs don't work like that, and there's really, in mobile MCP, the tooling around it is still fairly rudimentary. That said, though, even just with this very simple elementary implementation, it allows me to close another gap that I have to fill for agents to continue my development. In the past, after I implemented feature in it, sure, I have tests, but the new features, you're going to have to test it manually, right? Go through the procedure and test it manually. But with this, you don't have to do that anymore. In your implementation procedures, you can just ask the agent to test it for you using mobile MCP. So it allows for a much faster iteration. Well, maybe not faster, because it does take a little bit of time for the agent to understand the context, to understand the screenshot, and then issue commands. So these things take time. But what you could do is you sort of could do an issue, fire and forget. You know, finalize on a plan before you ask the agent to do that. You're gonna have to make sure that the plan is right. You can't just be like, oh, yeah, implement this. But you know, at first you develop a plan, but after that plan is developed, you have a GitHub issue already open. It's been reviewed, and you're comfortable with the way the issue is describing the situation. You then issue the command for the agent to implement that. Open up a PR, you know, do it on a topic branch. Open up a PR, and after implementation, make it go through the feature in the actual app at runtime to find out if there's any, do a smoke test, right? To find out if there's any glaring mistakes or glaring issues that would, you know, cause a crash or stuff like that, that you otherwise wouldn't be able to discover at compile time. So this has actually been quite eye-opening. Again, I don't know why I didn't do this earlier. Two commands, and then you have it up and running. And so, lesson learned. Now, in the future, of course, I'll be relying on this in addition to a lot of my other MCP servers that I've set up. But last week, you know, this was set up, and I've been enjoying it. So to summarize, last week I finished my application to access production on Google Play Store. I started my application to access production on iOS App Store. That's not done yet, and I set up mobile MCP for my development environment. Next week, the goal is to finish the application for iOS to access production and to monitor the responses and fix any issues that might come back. And if I have time and if I want to do it, I'm going to refine the marketing copy a bit more, and then, you know, hopefully produce more enticing screenshots as well as videos for my website. And that's it for this week. I'll see you next week.